All right, let's try that again. We're live. It's the Panther-Lair Post-Game show. My mic is no longer muted, and Pitt has lost. 48-46 in 6 GD overtimes. Pitt had a lead. Pitt fell behind. Pitt took the lead again. They were up by 10. Like, I don't even know, like, what happened in this game and how long this game went on. I mean, for one thing, we're starting this post-game show at 6:48. So this game literally, let's see what it was officially clocked at, 4 hours and 38 minutes. Damn close to a 5-hour game here. And Pitt went from trailing 20-12 to leading 30-20 to leading, back to a tie game 30-30 to taking a lead 37-30 in overtime. And then, I mean, all the overtime, everything that happened was just absurdity. What, like, where do we, I mean, do we have to start with the shot on this game? Like, where do we even start with this post-game show? Like, how do we even talk about this? Like, so much, there's so much I want to say about this game right now. There's so much I want to say about this team, about this coaching staff, about this season. The unthinkable has happened. A 7-0 start to a 7-6 finish. And you know what? You lost a lot of your excuses with this game today. A lot of the excuses of why Pitt lost 5 games in a row down the stretch, a lot of those excuses went out the window today with this game. Now, there was nothing that happened today that would have changed the outcome of the SMU game. There was nothing that happened today that would have changed the outcome of the Louisville game. But Virginia and Boston College, and to a certain extent Clemson, were games that were very much there for Pitt to win, where Pitt did not need to finish the season on a 5-game losing streak. Pitt did not need to finish the season 7-5. That Pitt could have won 8 games, 9 games, 10 games with some simple adjustments. And all the talk about injuries, and I said to myself, and I'll continue to say it through the offseason, about how many injuries they had and how much that sabotaged the season, and the injury to Branson Taylor and the injury to Eli Holstein. Those were big issues. But guess what? Your offense didn't need to be as bad as it was, because today it showed that it can be a little bit better than that. Now, final stats. What do we see? 438 yards for Pitt, 300 rushing yards, 137 passing yards. So, I almost feel like we need to start with the shot, because I have a long rant I'm about to launch into that I think a lot of you would probably agree with. We'll get the maker's mark out. All right. This is the Panther-Lair Post-Game show. Of course, I should welcome you into the show. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. This is our end-of-season post-game show. We've done it after every game this season. This is the final one. This is post-game show number 13. We've gone from insane, crazy comebacks like the Cincinnati and West Virginia game, mind-numbing, befuddling losses like Virginia and Clemson and Boston College, absolute beatdowns like SMU and Louisville. We've had wild, crazy games like the Syracuse. I mean, we've seen everything this year. Like, I don't think there are many outcomes of a football game that we have not seen in 2024. And here we are, finishing the season with some of the craziest, kids, earmuffs, some of the most batshit football we've ever seen in our lives. Like, what the hell happened today? If ever there was a game to swear, like to use curse words, and we won't, and we're going to keep it clean. But what was that today? What did we see? All I know is we're going to talk about it here. And I think you guys probably have some real hot takes to put out on this game for sure. Put all your comments and questions there in the chat screen. All right, we're going to read as many as we can throughout the night. Answer as many questions as we can, respond to as many comments as we can. If you want to make sure we read your comment or answer your question, you can be a super chatter. Click that little $sign down at the bottom of the screen. Down at the bottom of the chat screen, kick a couple bucks to the podcast. We appreciate any support that you want to show. And then when you do that, put your comment in there. All right. If you asked a question a long time ago and then you super chat now, I can't dig back, go back through and find your old comment. So put your comment or your question in your super chat, like a few of you guys have already done. And I will, we'll definitely get to the super chat comments and questions. Like, we'll start here with Michael B. He's a super chatter. He's a big Pitt fan. He's got some strong takes and strong opinions I don't always agree with, but he's a big Pitt fan. Says, Chris, this game showed everyone that Pat Narduzzi is a terrible head coach. He's also gutless by kicking a field goal at the one in double OT. His seat has to be hot, right? His coaches suck too. Yeah, man, you got to go for it on fourth and goal at the one. Like, I'm not going to even sit here. You guys know me. I'm one of the, I devil's advocate and all of that. Try to find that. Well, I'll try to explain what the coaches were thinking. I have no idea what they were thinking. Like, I don't know why you want to put yourself in a one and done situation when you've got a chance to close it out right there. Why do you want to settle for a field goal from the one and send yourself in, just so you can send yourself into a sudden death situation from the three? You're at the one. Stay there, make the play, win the game, and go home. I didn't even care that you did this goofy stuff with a direct snap to the tight end and a defensive tackle going after the pass. It was a beautiful play. It was perfect. Gavin Bartholomew, high school quarterback, throw the ball in his chest, not over his head. Poor Isaiah Neal's falling down trying to catch that ball. It was a perfect call. It was a great play. It was set up perfectly. It worked perfectly. And then Gavin Bartholomew overthrew him. And like, we will not be blaming Gavin Bartholomew. He made an NFL catch later. The third overtime? He made an NFL catch, got 2 feet down, and then got the first foot down again. So he got 3 feet down. It was an outstanding catch to keep that one going and put Pitt ahead 46-44. So we're not going to, criticize Gavin Bartholomew for overthrowing a defensive tackle on the first pass he has thrown in his Pitt career. I don't remember Gavin Bartholomew throwing another pass. Maybe he did. No, I forgot it. But definitely his first pass of the afternoon. We're not going to crucify him for that. But what we will do is say, yeah, man, line up at the one on fourth and goal and get your touchdown. Get out of there. Go home winning this game 43-40. Like, win the game. You have a chance to win the game. Why are you playing to go into the third overtime where now things get far more difficult because you have to score in one play? One play. I know right there on fourth and goal, you're in a one-play situation. You have to score in one play. But there you've got the ball at the one as opposed to the three. And even if you continue snapping it and running out of the shotgun on that short yardage situation, I think you can get it with Julian Duggar. I think you can get it with Gavin Bartholomew. I think you can get it with Desmond Reed, with Jules Goff, with a sweep to Kenny Johnson. You can get the touchdown. Do it. Run the ball. Don't throw it. Don't kick it. Don't do anything else to it. Hand it off. Direct snap. It doesn't matter. Go score the touchdown, win the game. But instead, Pitt plays for a battle of 2-point conversions. What in God's name? Why would you do that? Why would you? Like, I don't even know if it's cowardly. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just foolish. You're not giving you are, I guess, technically you're giving yourself a chance to win the game, but why would you try to extend it at that point? Get the touchdown. You can win. You need 3 feet. You need 36 inches to win the game and not go 7-6, not have a 7-game losing streak, not lose to a MAC team. 36 inches is all you needed. And instead you kick a field goal. It was terrible. It was a terrible decision. And I wouldn't have faulted them if they went for it and lost. If you lose that game 40-37 because you went for it on fourth and goal from the one, nobody's going to say, hey, that was the wrong call. You might have had a bad play call. You might not have executed it well. Whatever it may be, nobody's going to say that the decision to go for it was wrong. Instead, the entire world is saying, why would you kick there? What are you trying to accomplish? You just want to extend the game. You were trying to hit the 5-hour mark. I don't get it. Your offense is moving. You score a touchdown on the what did they get on the first overtime? They scored a touchdown on the first overtime where they got the nice 11-yard swing pass. Well, Julian Duggar converted the 3rd and 8 with a scramble. They got a nice swing pass to Desmond Reed for 11, and then Duggar runs in from 2 yards out. Runs in from 2 yards out. Your offense is doing good. That second one, you got yourself down to the 1, even after taking a false start penalty that pushed you back to the 30. You get 11 yards from Desmond Reed. You get a few from Kenny Johnson, and then you get a 3rd and 1 conversion from Juelz Goff. And then your Wildcat with Gavin Bartholomew damn near gets into the end zone right there. On a 2nd and goal from the 4, Bartholomew gets to the 1. You could do that again. And quite frankly, like, even though the pass to Isaiah O'Neal, like, it was there to be had, just pound it with Bartholomew again. Do it twice. I bet you get the 36 inches if you hand the ball to Gavin Bartholomew twice, and not even hand it to him, if you snap it to him directly. And I bet you'd get it if you snap it to Julian Duggar and then snap it to Gavin Bartholomew, or vice versa. You're getting in the end zone. I've never been as sure of anything in my life. But instead they kick. They let Toledo stay in the game. And ultimately the luck runs out. Like 5 hours ago, this game started. What even happened 5 hours ago? I can't remember. Can you? All right, Michael B., thanks for being the super chatter. John Waffle H2P says, Panthers failed his players, period. It's time to fire this clown and hire Shanahan. You mean Mike Shanahan, the former Pitt receiver, Indiana OC? I like Mike a lot. I think he's going to be a great coach. I think he is a great coach. I think he's doing a great job. He's a great guy, really good player. I don't know if he's ready to be a head coach yet, but he'll be there eventually. I think Mike Shanahan will be a head coach eventually. Another Wombat, as the super chatter says, I've heard a rumor that Pat Narduzzi is retiring. It was a good game. Julian Duggar actually looked good. I'm not going to mope. It was a fun season. If he was retiring, he should have gone for it, 4th and goal at the 1. All right. It's time. What's going on here? There we go. Couldn't remember if there was a cork or it was a screw top. Our final Backshore Apparel shot of the game. After we've just ranted and raved about that 4th down call. And I mean, I don't think there's any mystery about who the shot of the game. Actually, you know what? There's an off chance we might do 2 shots for this show, but just in case we don't, we're going to do this for 2 people. All right. The Backshore Apparel shot of the game absolutely goes to 2 guys who did everything they could. They gave everything they had to try to win this game for Pitt. We can't say that about everyone wearing a Pitt logo today. But these 2 guys did everything they could to win this game for Pitt. And they ultimately fell short. But Pitt did not lose this game for a lack of trying from Desmond Reed or Julian Duggar. Desmond Reed gave his body today. And that dude is a warrior. In the football sense, he is a warrior out there. He will take the pounding, and he keeps going and making plays. And Julian Duggar, coming as a true freshman, like, if you're a true freshman, you play late in the season, you've done a good job if you leave everyone saying, where was that guy earlier in the season? Yeah, we'll talk about that. Backshore Apparel shot of the game. Julian Duggar, Desmond Reed, they earned it. So why didn't Julian Duggar start this game? I have no answer for that. This is not going to be one of those ones where I try and offer the rationalization or explanation for why Julian Duggar did not start this game. Before the game, it was easy to say, it'll be David Lynch because he's the redshirt freshman. He's a little bit older, blah, blah, blah. Julian Duggar should have been in this game from the very start. If you tell me that Duggar should not have started over Nate Yarnell in those final games when Eli Holstein was hurt, okay, that's fine. Yarnell's an older guy. You defer to the, veteran player, the guy who's been on the field, the guy who's got experience. That's fine. But there's no real differentiating factor there in terms of experience between Julian Duggar and David Lynch. But there are differentiating factors in physical ability between those 2 guys. I mean, there was one sack that Lynch took where he got run down from behind. And, Eli Holstein doesn't get sacked there. Nate Yarnell probably doesn't. Julian Duggar definitely doesn't. I don't know what led to the decision to start with David Lynch, but shout out to the coaches for understanding they needed to make a change. Shout out to the coaches for saying, hey, Duggar actually gives us a pretty good chance to win, because he did give them a pretty good chance to win. Pitt had 301 rushing yards. Duggar ran 21 times for 88 yards, and that includes sack yardage. Toledo had 5 sacks total. I think 2 were on Lynch and 3 were on Duggar. So, lost yardage there. I think Duggar probably lost maybe like 30 yards on sacks, because Lynch was officially two rushing attempts for minus 13 yards. Or no, Toledo was credited with 5 sacks for 40 yards. So that'd be another 27 yards lost for Duggar on 3 sacks. So, yards gained. He gained over 100 yards rushing today on about 18 rushing attempts, not counting the sacks. Between that and Desmond Reed going for 165 on 32 carries, both of those guys, Reed and Duggar, had a rushing touchdown. Duggar threw 2 touchdown passes, 7 of 13 for 72 yards. He had an interception. It wasn't a good pass. It was one of those throws over the middle that, it's bad. It probably, as soon as he threw it, he was probably like, oh, crap. Fortunately for Pitt, they were able to get a turnover on downs at the Pitt 28 after the interception. But that was really the biggest mistake Julian Duggar made. Maybe, I don't want to say the only mistake. I'm sure there were other things, missed reads or things like that he should have had. But Julian Duggar played really, really well. And so, I think it's legitimate to ask a question of why didn't he start this game? But you know what else, though? Even if I'll stop short of asking why didn't Julian Duggar play in the 5-game losing streak, why didn't Julian Duggar play when Pitt, when Eli Holstein was hurt, I won't say that, okay? Because, I understand if you want to go with Nate Yarnell. But I do think there's a question of, like, all the different wrinkles they put into the offense for this game today, all the different little tricks and different things like that. Like, where were those things when the offense was struggling through those 5 games? Where were the Wildcat snaps and the jet sweeps and those kinds of things? I understand Duggar adds an extra element, a different element that you weren't going to get with Nate Yarnell, so you couldn't entirely run those things, but you could run some of them, and you could run some semblance of some of them instead of trying to just do the same thing you were doing all season long. And when it started running into some issues in the Cal game, in the Syracuse game, and they were still winning, but the defenses clearly were figuring out this offense a little bit, where were all these creative adjustments that we saw today? Why didn't those get brought out against Virginia? Why didn't those get brought out at Boston College? Hell, it's the last game of the season, the last regular season game. You're at Boston College. Why not try to get creative? Why not break out some of those things that they used today, which actually had some success? Kenny Johnson gained 28 yards on 3 rushing attempts. Like, why not? Joel's Goff, 7 carries for 31 yards, and he had 3 catches for 32 yards. Like, there were things you can do in this offense with these players, this personnel. You weren't just completely doomed to, we lost Branson Taylor and Eli Holstein. The offense has to suck now. No, it actually doesn't. It actually could be good. And I think you saw some flashes today where they were able to do things. No, was their passing game as developed today as it was in the first 7 games, or really the first 5? No, it wasn't. But you know what? They still put up 438 yards. They still scored, they score in regulation. 30 points. 30 points is not a lot to sing about, and 2 of those came on a blocked extra point. But that was also going into it with these quarterbacks playing for the first time. If you have a veteran quarterback, maybe you're able to execute things even a little bit better. Where was all this creativity over the last 5 games prior to this? Or the Cal game or the Syracuse game where the offense wasn't very good in those 2 games either. Where was all this creativity? I think that's probably a question even more than, or just as much as, the question about why Julian Duggar maybe wasn't playing more. Certainly to start this game. And maybe in some of these games where, they needed to go to a backup quarterback or a change of pace. Like if your offense is really struggling like it was in some of those games with Nate Yarnell playing in place of Eli Holstein, like maybe try some different packages. Maybe get something ready. A small package of plays for Julian Duggar to come in and run. He looked like he could handle it. Which one was it? It was the Kenny Johnson. The third overtime, the first 2-point conversion. Just a great play by Julian Duggar. He scrambles, has the presence of mind to keep looking downfield and finds downfield. It's 3 damn yards away to the end zone. Has the presence of mind to keep looking, and he finds Kenny Johnson standing all by himself in the end zone. That was a great heady play by a guy seeing the field for the first time in his career. That was a really good play. I thought Julian Duggar acquitted himself nicely in this game. Like really well. Like so well that, I'll be honest. I'm more than happy to overreact to Julian Duggar's performance today. And I will overreact by saying this. I think that this staff has been interested in finding a backup quarterback in the transfer portal to go into next season. Because if Eli Holstein gets hurt, they want somebody reliable they can call upon. I don't think that's a great need anymore. If you want it for numbers, sure. But I think going into next season with Eli Holstein, ahead of Julian Duggar, ahead of Mason Heinschel, with David Lynch and Jake Frandl floating around in there, I think you'd be okay. I really do. Like Julian Duggar showed me enough today to think that he can be a serviceable backup quarterback next year with the potential to be something even more than that beyond next season. And when I say serviceable backup, I'm not limiting him to that role, but I'm saying I think if you go into next season with Eli Holstein as your starter and Julian Duggar as your number 2, you feel pretty solid about your quarterback situation because Julian Duggar can make plays. He can make plays with his legs, and he's got a really good arm. Made a bad decision on the interception, made a whole lot of good decisions in this game as well. It's funny, like we talked about how, what storylines might come out of this game, whether it's going to be good or bad, or they're going to be encouraged or not encouraged. Like, damn it, they didn't come out and find some ways to make this one interesting. Desmond Reed putting in a heroic effort. Julian Duggar's emergence. Juelz Goff played well. Kenny Johnson, anytime he touched the ball, he seemed to be able to make plays. Getting Gavin Bartholomew involved kind of late in this thing. Getting Jake Overman involved. Catching a touchdown pass. I mean, there was a lot of intrigue in this game. Ben Sauls with another 50-yard field goal. There was a lot of intrigue, and I'm not going to say it's good. I'm not going to say, it's just that was a great game. I think if you watch this game without any rooting interest, you would probably be like, God, I love college football. It's such a ridiculous sport. I've tried to explain this to my kids about how college football is such a blast because literally anything can happen. And the NFL is so boring by comparison because it never gets as wild and as insane as what we see in college football on a weekly basis. And when it's bowl season, kind of on a daily basis. Like a game like this with all of the ridiculousness. I got a text from a friend who's working in the MAC now at a MAC school and said, what did he say? Said like Pitt wasn't ready for MACtion or something like that. Or welcome to the MACtion or something like that. And I said, if you put Pitt and MACtion in the same building, it's combustible. And it certainly ended up being combustible in this game today. Super chatter RJC Man 38 says, I think if Alan Green is going to impact football, he must fire Pat Narduzzi. I don't think Alan Green is going to do that. I don't think Pitt has any stomach to pay the buyout for a coach that has a few years left on their contract like Narduzzi does, nor should they pay the buyout on a coach who has a few more years left on their contract like Narduzzi does. I also, and this is my own personal sort of hypothesis, nobody in power has told me this, but I highly doubt Alan Green is going to walk in mid-season, mind you, mid-season. It's not like he was here for the full season. It's not like he got hired in the spring and has, spent the last 9 months. He got hired mid-season and walk in and say, you know what, based on the mid-season that I watched, which I think he got hired right before the Syracuse game. So he's seen Pitt go 1-6 since he got the job. I highly doubt he's going to walk in and say, based on the last 2 months that I've seen, I'm going to fire the head coach and completely upset the apple cart and incur a major buyout and have to, when we're trying to find money for lots of other things right now. So I don't see that happening. I don't think he's going to make any firing. And to be honest, no, you would not fire a coach right now. You would not fire a coach on December 26th. And if you do, you are giving yourself the death penalty for the next foreseeable years. And digging a hole that you may very well not climb out of. This is like the PSA, okay? This is the PSA for everybody who thinks you should fire Pat Narduzzi after this bowl game and end of season collapse, okay? If you fire a coach on December 26th, you lose your roster, you have less than ideal options to refill your roster, and you dig yourself a hole. No matter how good of a coach you hire, you dig yourself a hole that it will take years to climb out of. Years. Now, you may be sitting there saying, oh, well, Narduzzi's going to dig a hole that we won't climb out of for years. Yeah, well, at least he'll have a roster together. You do not fire a coach after Christmas. And not because of some deference to the holiday. You don't do it. Because when you do that, everybody leaves. You lose your roster. And you hire a new coach, and I don't care who you hire. You could go get Urban Meyer to come in. And he's got to rebuild. Look, I gave myself a thumbs up on hiring Urban Meyer. I didn't intend to, because I think that'd be a terrible idea and a disaster in the making. But I digress. You could hire somebody with or Nick Saban to come in, and he is not going to turn it around. Not anytime soon. It will take a while to fix that problem, to dig out of that hole if you fire a coach after Christmas. The transfer portal, while it gives you options to restock your roster, it also gives a place for your roster to go. So get it out of your head. Get it out of your head. And if by some chance the decision is made, then that you should not be celebrating it. I mean, you can celebrate whatever you want. I don't care. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you have half a brain, you'll realize that's a terrible idea to fire a coach at this point. I know you're angry. I know you think they should have gone for it on 4th and goal. I know you think they should have done this and they should have done that and they screwed up this and they screwed up that. That's great. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad that you are passionate about your University of Pittsburgh athletic programs. But if you are passionate about your University of Pittsburgh athletic programs, then you know it's a terrible idea. Well, there's two parts. If you are passionate about your University of Pittsburgh athletic programs and you have any awareness whatsoever of the current state of college football, then you know the idea of firing a coach after Christmas is you're giving yourself the death penalty. And I know there are plenty of people out there who say, well, keeping Narduzzi is the death penalty. No, the actual death penalty is if you fire a coach after Christmas. Okay, so yeah. Lots of, lots of comments you guys are rolling in. I kind of want to, the comments started, all right? The comments started, Josh Newark, our guy, posted this comment at 4:17. Literally, right now on my clock, it's 7:16. Literally 3 hours ago, Josh was commenting on the live stream. Shout out to you, Josh. I should make you the Backshore Apparel shot of the day because that's awesome. That Josh Newark, one of our loyal listeners, a regular attendee of these post-game shows and the live show on Wednesday night. Josh was here 3 hours ago. It was funny. I initially scheduled this post-game show to start at 5:30. And I realized pretty quickly that wasn't happening. I think we actually got on the air 6:45 because I changed it from 5:30 to 5:45 thinking, well, we'll be right around there. And that was before Pitt went to 6 overtimes. Josh Newark says, can you explain Narduzzi's reasoning behind his quarterback usage the past 2 years? No, I can't. Last year, it was rationalized away as, and you know what? I'll say this. Last year and this year are two very different situations. Last year was a situation where the offensive coordinator was given carte blanche to make the decisions on quarterback, and so he stuck with Phil Dracovic for 5 games, and then he stuck with Christian Veyer for 5 games when it was pretty clear that neither one of those guys could do a whole lot outside of Veyer's game against Louisville. Okay? that was the offensive coordinator's decision-making. This year, probably some of that as well. Probably some the OC making the calls. And I think Eli Holstein was the right call. I think Eli Holstein was the right guy to pick to start the season. And I think he made a lot of plays to help Pitt get to 7-0. After that, okay, I think Nate Yarnell was probably a good option. Does Julian Duggar today look more exciting than Nate Yarnell did over those 5 games? Sure, he did. I don't think there's any question about that. Should Julian Duggar have started the bowl game at the very least? Like, I'll relitigate today. I will litigate. I will relitigate today's decision. Should Julian Duggar have started at Boston College? Should he have been the guy who came in and played against Virginia or something? Like, I don't know. I don't know where Duggar was at that point. I don't know how much they developed for Julian Duggar at that point. Maybe they should have seen it from the start and developed a package of plays for him all season. I don't know. Today, Julian Duggar should have been the starting quarterback. I don't know if it changes the outcome. I don't know if it makes anything different. I think David Lynch made a couple of, rookie mistakes. Rookie mistakes on his interceptions that I can't say with 100% certainty Julian Duggar doesn't make those mistakes as well, because he did. He made a rookie mistake. So I can't, I won't relitigate the last 5 games. I will say today it looked like Julian Duggar probably was the better option and probably should have started. Those are the biggest questions. Like, why at some point last year did nobody ever step in and say, guys, Phil Jacoby can't throw, and Christian Vera can't throw to his own team. Play Nate Yarnell. I don't know why no one ever stepped in and said that last year. This year, the biggest question mark, I think, at quarterback, position and quarterback decision-making and personnel decisions, I would say the biggest question is this bowl game of why Duggar didn't start in this one. A couple more super chatters came in. David Greenwald says, what a back half of the year. The defense let us down more than the offense during this slide. Need that fixed in the upcoming year. Here's the basketball season. Thanks always for your enthusiasm. I do feel enthusiastic. So it's funny. And thank you, David, for being a supporter. And watching the show and being a super chatter. We appreciate it for sure. It's funny. Earlier today, yesterday, I'm thinking about how I'm going to do this post-game show after this game, and I'm like, this is going to be a tough one. Like, I think I even thought to myself, this feels like it'll be a slog, to get through the post-game show, because I just don't see this game providing a lot of interesting content or fodder. I just thought it's just going to be a bit of a grind to get through this. It's going to be tough and uninteresting. I hope people are willing to tune in, because I just didn't have high hopes for what the GameAbove Sports Bowl would bring us. But by golly, it delivered. It didn't deliver a win for Pitt, but it delivered plenty of interesting content for us to talk about, and I think get a little bit enthusiastic about. Look, man, it's Thursday night. We're drinking. We just watched a 6 overtime game with more levels of ridiculousness than the fact that it was a 6 overtime bowl game in Detroit would even seem to indicate. I at one point, let me see if I can find the tweet. I had a tweet. There. Pitt runs tight end wildcat with a defensive tackle at fullback and has the tight end throw to the defensive tackle, but it's incomplete, so they kick a field goal from the 1 in the second overtime. Like, that sums it all up right there, man, of what this game was and how ridiculous this game got. And it's just shout out to Pitt and shout out to Toledo for making it interesting, if nothing else. RJC Man 38 has a follow-up super chat. I'm going to interpret this a little bit. Situational awareness is a major flaw of the Pat Narduzzi era. Pitting seems to have become the mantra of late. I'm embarrassed by Narduzzi. Dude, I'm going to leave this on the screen for a minute, but I appreciate you being a super chatter. Okay? But you took a few false starts there. Hey, speaking of false starts, How about Toledo taking back-to-back false starts? I was really hoping they would hit for the triumvirate so we could really say, see, it's not just Pitt who takes consecutive false starts. Like, again, that's how ridiculous this game was. And I know you're probably like really pissed off about Pitt losing and the 6-game losing streak and all of that. But like, man, you have to be able to sit back and just be like, what the hell? Like, what did we just watch? You know, like there's a certain point where it just gets so ridiculous that you have to be like amused by it. Like, are you not amused by what you saw today? You saw a compelling back and forth game with storylines out the wazoo. One team that, I mean, let's be honest, like they were full of cheap shots. Like Toledo was cheap shots all over the place. All the face mask penalties, all the ripping the helmets off. They talked a lot of crap. I mean, like it reminded me of Eastern Michigan a couple years ago in the Detroit Bowl game. So you got that as like a storyline. You've got, Pitt's quarterback situation. You've got Desmond Reed being just an absolute workhorse out there. You've got Ben Sauls kicking another 50-yard field goal. And that's like one of the more normal things that happen in this game. I think just as a fan of college football, if you set aside your great Pitt influenced depression for a second and set aside just your thoughts about how this day, this afternoon, this 5-hour game in Detroit tells you everything you need to know about the future of Pitt football. If you just set all that aside for a second and just be like, man, college football is ridiculous. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. And it's games like this that make people really love it. People get all excited about we're going to get to see two of the best teams in the country face each other. And like, that's cool. We like watching talented players, but what we really want to see is exciting back and forth games where the big time players make big time plays. And it happens to some extent in the NFL. I mean, you get it a little bit, but a lot of times you get games like we saw, like the Steelers Chiefs game yesterday. But like, give me Texas USC in the, 2005, the Vince Young national championship game. Give me that all day. That's the kind of game. Give me a game like this, where even a casual sports fan has to say, like, this is such a ridiculous affair. I can't help but being compelled to watch it. Like, this is drawing me in. And so I think that's part of like why I'm not really kind of just like, oh God, how can we get through to an hour here? I mean, like, yeah, there's stuff to complain about. There's absolutely stuff to complain about. It was 6-game losing streak. They went from 7-0 to 7-6, which I never thought was possible. Never thought it was possible. They lost this game for a lot of reasons, not the least of which they kicked a field goal on 4th and goal from the 1, indicating that Pat Narduzzi learned nothing from the Penn State game 5 years ago, when there was a whole lot more on the line in that game and a chance to end the game and go home with a touchdown. Literally score and walk off the field. And so we can complain about that, and we will, and we have, and we should, and we'll continue to. And I can only imagine how good the message boards are right now. Going to get my deleting fingers out here soon and start going to clean things up, because I can just I can already hear what all of you are saying. But like, was that not entertaining? Like, what's the gladiator line? Are you not entertained? I mean, like, back and forth, 6 overtimes. The intensity of the 2-point conversion overtimes. And they did that 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 times. Like, that's high drama. And like, you might be thinking about the overall state of Pitt football and what it means for whether the program will ever be competitive in the world of college football and all this. Like, maybe just take a second, sit back and say, I like the sport of college football. And I just watched my team play in a really compelling back and forth game that had a high drama, high levels of ridiculousness, a whole bunch of compelling storylines. Like, that's not the worst thing. It's disappointing to have a loss. It's not the worst thing to watch. Willader Harris disagrees. Quote, I am so pissed. AD needs to grow a pair. Will, as the super chatter says, 6-game losing streak, field goal at the 1 for overtime. Pat Narduzzi running away without shaking Jason Candle's hand, and Toledo topping SMU on taunting Pitt with impunity. Gutless. So I didn't see the post-game handshake. Not to go TMI, but I really had to pee from about the final 5 minutes of regulation. So by the time overtime ended, I had to run to the bathroom and then go grab the various drinks for our post-game show, shot glass. And so I didn't see the post-game handshake. I don't know what happened. Panthers was really complimentary and respectful of Jason Candle during the pre-bowl Zoom press conference we had. He basically said, like, I don't know why this guy hasn't been hired away yet. He basically said, I don't know why this guy hasn't left Toledo yet, which sort of backhanded compliment there, Pat, but okay. And so I didn't see what happened in the post-game. I'm not sure what issue Pat Narduzzi would have with Jason Candle. Toledo, yeah, big time on the taunting, big time on the smack talking, big time on the cheap shots, big time, all of those things. And yeah, SMU talked a lot of trash, taunted Pitt, but they were also killing Pitt. There was never a point here where Toledo was killing Pitt. They were up 20-12 at one point, and that was it. All right, let's get into the comments and questions. Remember, if you want to make sure we read your comment or answer your question, you can be a super chatter. Josh Newark says, is Ben Sauls the greatest Pitt bowl player ever? Sure. I don't know. I don't know what the Pitt records for bowl game stats are. Benjamin Glazer posted this 2 hours ago, so the game still had another hour and a half to go, I think, at that point. Says, one, it's pretty obvious Pat Narduzzi struggles with quarterback selection. Two, the Duggar pick six was my fault. I told my daughter as the snap was happening, Toledo hasn't scored this half. Come on, man. Why would you do that? Why would you jinx that? Narduzzi and quarterback selection. I mean, this is going to be an ongoing discussion, probably into eternity. Pat Narduzzi defers to his offensive coordinator. I think there's a lot of merit in that. I think there's a lot of valor in saying, I'm not going to be hands-on. I'm not going to meddle. I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to let you be the head coach of the offense. And Pat Narduzzi has said that since his first press conference, just, 10 years ago, maybe today. Was it the day after Christmas that Narduzzi was introduced? I think it might have been. I think it might have been 10 years ago today. I might have to look this up. Because I want to say, yeah, that's right. 10 years ago today, December 26th, 2014, Pat Narduzzi stood at a podium in the South Side and held his introductory press conference in a team room that looks very different from the one right now, but I digress. But he said during that press conference he wants his coordinators to be the head coaches. Like, the offensive coordinator is the head coach of the offense. The defensive coordinator is the head coach of the defense. That was what Mark D'Antonio did, and that was what Narduzzi wanted to do. That was how he was going to approach it. Autonomy for the coordinators. And so that applies to the quarterback discussion and the quarterback decision of who is going to be the starting quarterback, who goes in. That's up to the offensive coordinator. And I think that's good. I think that's admirable. But, and this is a big but, because if you know me, this is one of my favorite sort of rhetorical tactics. I like to start with one obvious statement and then come around with a big but there to turn it around, because it's just what I prefer to do. I like big buts. I mean, I cannot lie. So Pat Narduzzi, I think it's admirable to do that, but at some point he needs to step in and say, no, we need to change this. If he can see from his position that a quarterback is not working out or a different quarterback needs to play, he has the ultimate override vote. He has the executive order. He has the veto. He can step in and say, no, Phil Jurkovec cannot be our starting quarterback anymore. We have to try Christian Bayer. No, Christian Bayer cannot be our starting quarterback anymore. We have to try Nate Yarnell. And it was only at his insistence that any of those changes were made last year. If not for Narduzzi stepping in, you might have seen a full season of Phil Jurkovec. I'm not entirely convinced that would not have been the case. So, it's not necessarily Narduzzi's decision-making in terms of picking a quarterback. It's his decision-making of when he steps in, of when he puts his foot down and says, I'm the head coach. This is the guy who's going to play for us. that I think is where there's some questions. But I don't know. I don't know if that applies to this year or not, other than, like we said, maybe about the decision to start Lynch over Duggar today. Josh Newark wanted to know, and he said this at 5:25, so more than 2 hours ago. Are you prepared to call this the Julian Duggar breakout game? And additionally, do you see him going into the offseason as a clear QB1? I'm only being slightly sarcastic here. Yes, it was a Julian Duggar breakout game. Duggar went 7 of 13 for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns passing. Recorded officially 21 rushing attempts for 88 yards and 1 touchdown. But like I said, that included sacks. And so, wait, that's the receiving. I'm trying to see if they have the lost yardage. No, we'll have to see those stats a little bit later. I'll have to look up to find out how much he lost on the sacks. But I mean, he ultimately, gross rushed for, total yards gained of more than 100. And, I think, only lost yards due to the sacks. So, yeah, to your question, yes, it was absolutely a Julian Duggar breakout game. He accounted for 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing and 2 passing. He was also, set up another touchdown. I think he was on the field for every touchdown drive that Pitt had. At some point, Julian Duggar played. Every time they ended up scoring, he was on the field during that drive. And so, it was a breakout game. It absolutely was. Does he enter the offseason as QB1? No. I think that's still Eli Holstein. But I think Duggar definitely cemented his place as the number 2 and showed that he can do it. Joe New is a super chatter and wanted to be a super chatter to say that he has officially entered the fan transfer portal. You know that what's that gif from, is it from Tombstone? Of Powers Booth? Well, I can't do it. I wish I looked like Powers Booth. How many people do you think we would have watching this if I had Powers Booth as a guest on the post-game show? All right. Let's scroll in here. Josh Newark's got a lot of things to say, and I appreciate it, but I want to get some more people here. Green says, I got to put that game on number 1 coaching. Started around quarterback. Should have went for it on 4th down at the end of the game instead of kicking a field goal. In the defense, you can't get one stop in overtime, says on an FCS opponent, but they're not FCS. They're in the MAC. Yeah, you know what? Like, the defense doesn't get a pass here for me. The defense, and not that I assume you thought I was giving them a pass, but they don't get a pass. They didn't allow any points in the second half. Gave up a field. They gave up 3 points. They gave up a field goal, which tied the game and ended up sending it to overtime. Actually, I want to look back at that drive real quick to see where that one went astray. Yep. We do need to talk about this. We need to talk about the defense for a little bit, because the defense, they gave up 416 total yards, 336 passing yards to an offense that does largely rely on the pass. They don't throw the ball, or they don't run the ball very well. They're not, their game is the passing game. And so you knew that. You knew they were probably going to get some passing yards in this game. But that drive, Toledo gets the ball back with 4.5 minutes left to go in the game. Pitt's up 30-27. After the pick 6, they throw the pick 6. It goes 30-27. They, run about 3 minutes off the clock. There's questionable decision-making there, too, on the pick 6 drive and the next drive of how much time they actually killed. I think the pick 6 drive, they could have handed the ball off more and tried to run the clock more. The next drive, they took 3 minutes and 4 seconds off the clock, but they were still snapping it around like 15 seconds. Could have run more clock there. But Toledo gets the ball back at their own 20 after a Pitt punt. 4.5 minutes left to go. Pitt, they pick up, first down on a couple of 8-yard passes. Holding penalty sets up 1st and 20 for Toledo. They get 14 yards on a pass to number 2, Vandeross. We're going to bring him up again because he caught the first 2 passes of the drive for 8 yards. It's 3rd and 6. They drop into coverage. They force an incomplete pass. It's 4th and 6 from the 40. 2 minutes and 51 seconds left to go. This is the play of the game. They've got the Delta defense out there. They should drop into coverage. Don't blitz. Just drop. You can force incomplete passes. And I think they came after him. And more importantly, they lost number 2, Vander Ross. Vander Ross had 12 catches for 194 yards and 1 touchdown. Toledo had 2 guys that you had to watch all the time in the passing game. Number 1 and number 2. It's easy to find them. They're wearing number 1 and number 2. They're the main guys to watch. And yeah, their tight end caught 4 passes for 42 yards and a touchdown. That's what tight ends do against Pitt's defense. They catch 4 passes for 42 yards and a touchdown. They irritate you because they make a couple big third down catches. They score a touchdown. That's what they do. But Pitt had to watch number 1 and number 2. And it's a flaw in this defensive scheme. It's a flaw in the defensive coaching. It's a flaw in the execution. It's a flaw in the game plan. It's a flaw in the preparation. It's a flaw across the board that when there are 2 primary receivers on a team like this team had, number 1 and number 2, you still let them combine for 20 catches, 278 yards. These are the guys. These are the main guys you need to watch. You cannot let them beat you. Okay? And when you're in a 4th and 6 situation with the game on the line, you better know where number 1 is and where number 2 is. You cannot let them beat you. And it happened. And it happened again and again and again. And you get into overtime. And it happened again. Let me see here. It was the 2-point conversion plays. They got one to number 19. They got one to 88. Let's see. Oh, the last 2, right? So Pitt goes up 46-44. They get number 1, Newton, get him for the first one. And then they get number 2, back-to-back. They go number 1 and number 2 to make 2 2-point conversions, put Toledo up 48-46. Pitt loses. Like, how do you lose those guys? And it's in overtime, those last 2 overtimes, the 5th and 6th overtimes, and it's that 4th and 6 from the 40, where you could have gotten off the field. You got to stop. How much time did I say it was? 2:51? That's where you could end the game. You get to stop. This defense, too much. Gave up too much. And it's pressure up front. They didn't get a sack, I think, until, was it that drive? No, it was overtime. It was overtime. It was the first overtime they got a sack. Pitt goes and scores a touchdown. They're up 37-30. It was the first, I think it was the first sack of the game. The only sack of the game that Pitt got. Francis Brew got to Tucker Gleason, got a sack for -8. Huge, right? Because now it's 2nd and 18 from the 33. Toledo needs a touchdown just to tie the game to extend overtime. You know, now you got them in the 2nd and 18. That's awesome. Except they lose contain on Gleason. He scrambles and he runs for 15 yards. And he gets away from Nate Matlack and he gets away from Francis Brew. Then it's 3rd and 3. They throw incomplete. Again, Francis Brew gets pressure. But 4th and 3, guess who catches the pass? It's number 1. Like, these are the 2 guys. And I think it was like Kyle Lewis was on him. And I think Kyle Lewis is great. As you know, I've been talking about Kyle Lewis all year. But how do you end up in a defensive scheme where that guy is matched up on a linebacker? These are the 2 guys you have to watch, number 1 and number 2. And it's a failure of your scheme. It's a failure of your game plan. It's a failure of your preparation. It's a failure of your execution. It's a failure of your play calling. All across the board. If you let number 1 and number 2 combine for 20 catches, 278 yards, that's a failure. Major, major failure. Where are we at here? All right. Let's see. Will says they coached not to lose at the end of regulation. I don't know about the end of regulation. I actually don't think that's the case. I think they were trying to get into field goal range to win. I don't think they were coaching not to. I guess you could attempt the field goal. They were at the 49-yard line, the Pitt 49. So it would have been a 68-yard field goal. You could have tried it, I guess. But otherwise, I don't think they were playing for overtime there. I think they were trying to get down and score. They get, Duggar runs for 18 yards to get up close to midfield. Jake Overman dropped the pass on 2nd and 11 from the 47. That one would have picked up. I mean, it was exactly where it was supposed to be. Like, that was the pass they needed, and it was going to pick up yards. I don't know if it was going to get a first down, but it was going to get close. They end up on 3rd and 11. Duggar runs for 2 yards. It's at the 49. They're right close to midfield for 4th down. They call the timeout with 1 second left, clearly intending to do something. They have Duggar drop back. I don't know what to do, throw a Hail Mary or something. You could have let Sauls kick a from the 49, 51, it would be like 68, 69-yard field goal. Highly unlikely. And they would have put someone back to return it, and then you've got to deal with making the tackle when you have largely, mostly linemen on the field. So that could be a little bit tricky. Maybe you lose the game right there. But I don't think at the end of regulation necessarily they were playing not to lose. I do think it was a bad decision in overtime, though. Matt Fry says this was a disgrace. No reason to lose this game. Absolutely none. I agree. There's no reason to lose it. Ryan Lorenzi says, I love the let's call a timeout to get extra prepared to get caught in back-to-back pick plays in overtime. Yeah, it was a pick play, at least on the second one. Like the second, like the game winner, I think was definitely a pick play. Was the one before that a pick play as well? I mean, that guy got so wide open, he had to have been. He had to have been a pick play. Let's see. Larry Zuckett, what we just talked about. This question was posted almost an hour ago. So even if some of these questions sound like they're things we already covered, it's because they were asked a long time ago. Larry Zuckett says, why didn't Narduzzi go for the field goal at the end of regulation with one of the best kickers in college football? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, unless he was worried that it was an unmakeable field goal and, Toledo would put someone back, and he was worried about losing the game by, losing the game on a return. Nathan Shivens says, how do you go into that game thinking David Lynch was a better quarterback to start than Julian Duggar? I don't know. I think that was made plainly clear that Duggar was a better option and should have played all game. I don't know if it changes the game. I don't know if they win. Again, the biggest problem with Lynch, because like early on, like Lynch, I thought made some good plays, safe plays, short passes, easy stuff, took what the defense gave him. I thought he did a decent job, made 2 pretty big mistakes on the interceptions. But I'm not entirely convinced that Julian Duggar doesn't make 1 or 2 more mistakes if he plays that much longer. He made a mistake on a pick 6 that, again, game goes to overtime. Every pick 6 is going to hurt you, and they give up 2, right? And so I don't, he made a mistake there. He could have made other mistakes as well. I don't know if it guarantees a win, but I would have liked to have watched. It would have been more exciting to watch Julian Duggar play the whole game. Let's see. Matt Fry says it should have ended with 2 shots from the 1. They tried to have a tight end throw a pass on 3rd and goal from the 1. 2 runs from the 1. If you don't get in, you don't deserve to win. I tend to agree. The ends would have justified the means if Gavin Bartholomew's pass to Isaiah Neal was a little bit more on point and Neal would have caught it. I mean, he was wide open. Like, nobody was going to jar the ball loose. If Bartholomew just puts it in his chest or his belly, Neal's got it and he catches it for the touchdown. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. He just threw it too high. He overthrew him. So I don't hate that because it clearly worked. Nobody was watching the defensive tackle lined up at fullback. Nobody was waiting for him to leak out into the flat. It was a good play. I would have been fine with running it twice. I would have been fine with doing that and then running it on 4th down. I would have been fine with running it on 3rd down. And then if you got stopped trying that play on 4th down, any of those options. But whatever it is, if it got to 4th down, they needed to go for it. And they didn't. Super chatter RJC man again says, hyperbole is to suggest Green cannot make a home run higher. I'm counting on Green to make a home run higher as a competent AD. Yeah, I mean, he can make a home run higher. I think it's possible. I think Brian Harsin was probably viewed as a home run higher. I think he can make a home run higher. I just think the timing, this is not the time to be hiring a new coach. You don't want to be, like, you either get it or you don't. All right. This is not the time to change coaches. If you were going to do it, you did it on December 1st or whenever after the Boston College game. But they didn't do it, and they were never going to do it, and they're not going to do it now, or they shouldn't do it now. But we'll have a live stream if they do. But they won't. So, no live stream. Let's see. Scrolling through here. Oh, come on now. Ryan Falcone says, I'm so done. My last night of ruining evenings, days, weekends. I wasted decades with this crap. No more. Hey, dude, it's basketball season. Come on, man. They're 10-2 heading into the ACC schedule. Their resume right now after the non-conference is so much better than last year that if they just do what they did last year, they are almost guaranteed to make the NCAA tournament. And I think they've got a chance to at least do what they did last year in the ACC, if not better. So, yeah, don't give up, Ryan. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Get a beer. Or I shouldn't say that. I sometimes think about, not everyone is in position to embrace the post-game alcohol like we are. So I apologize for anyone if it's uncomfortable that we drink during these things, but we have to. Let's see. A lot of these comments are coming in as I'm scrolling through, like starting at the original, the comments from the start. As I'm scrolling through, I'm finding that people were posting as the game was going on. And so it's sort of funny reading some of those reactions. But Will is the super chatter, says Pat Narduzzi's staying, but what about Randy Bates retiring? I mean, I think Bates retiring has been on the table for a while now, like for a few seasons now, I should say. I mean, he is an older guy. He's been around for a long time. I could see him, deciding to hang it up. I'm not entirely sure that he will, but I guess that could possibly be on the table. Franklin King says, people ripping on the defense, they gave up 13 legitimate points in regulation. This loss is on piss poor coaching decisions. You're not wrong. 3 touchdowns total for 3 touchdowns total for Toledo in this game, and that includes the touchdowns or the 1 touchdown in overtime. So 2 touchdowns in regulation. Of course, Toledo got 2 touchdowns off of pick sixes, which you don't often see that. And really, the 1 touchdown they got, I mean, probably was a bit of an offensive pass interference. The 67-yard screen pass that ended up going a long way, where you had 2 defensive players basically taking each other out. Might have been a bit of a offensive pass interference there, but you're right. But they needed to make plays in the big moments. Only giving up 2 offensive touchdowns in regulation is good, and if you do that, you should win a game. It doesn't help when the offense throws 2 touchdown passes to the other team, but they still had opportunities to win it. You know what I mean? They had an opportunity at the end of regulation to win it. They had, an opportunity in the first overtime to win it, and they failed in both instances where they had Toledo in 4th down, and Toledo converted. And Toledo's not a great offense. Not a great offense. Robert Fry says Pitt needs to cough up big NIL money or they will never win more than 7 regularly. Well, the thing about that, Robert, there are things Pitt can do to drive those efforts, to encourage those efforts of NIL. But largely it's fan donations, right, to the collective. So Pitt fans need to get involved and be a part of that. If you want to talk about like NIL and resources and what they're able to use to bring in players from the transfer portal. Now, I do think, like, if you're feeling really down, look, there was a level of commitment shown in being able to bring all of these guys back. Eli Holstein's coming back. Desmond Reed is coming back. Kenny Johnson's coming back. Kyle Lewis is coming back. Rasheem Biles is coming back. These young defensive linemen are coming back. All these guys are coming back. And it's a testament to the NIL efforts and the efforts of the Alliance 412 collective and negotiate all those different things. That those players are coming back for another year. All those guys I just mentioned could have gotten a lot of money playing for another school, maybe even more money than they would have gotten at Pitt. But I think Pitt was able to make competitive offers and bring guys in. Let's see here. Scrolling through. Yeah, David Paulus Jr. makes a good point that I think we should probably point out. And look, I was yelling a lot about the fourth down decision. The decision to kick from the one, and I will still continue to yell about it because it's bad football, right? It's bad football. It's not about Pitt necessarily. It's just bad football. I would say anybody who makes that decision in that situation is making a bad decision. But David says they were on their fourth string quarterback. Let's not get all up in arms about this loss out of all the previous losses. And David is right. And this is part of what I was saying earlier, that this was just a ridiculous game and kind of an entertaining college football game, regardless of the outcome of whether it favored your favorite team or not. I think if you want to be mad about Pitt losses, be mad about the Clemson loss, be mad about the Virginia loss, be mad about the Boston College loss. This game, you can be mad about the fourth down decision, the decision to kick the field goal from the one, but this game is not as much of a, it's not the same. You know what I mean? It's not the same as those other 5 games and those losses they incurred there. This was unique. I mean, with the personnel of being, again, on your fourth and fifth string quarterbacks, even if the fifth string was better than the fourth string, that's what, that's what made this game unique. And so you can still be mad about the 5-game losing streak. I mean, you can be mad about whatever you want. I think it's fair to be mad about the 5-game losing streak. This extra game is sort of unique in and of itself. Let's see. Another Wombat says, everyone's so pissed. It is what it is. Pitt marched 2 freshman quarterbacks out there. What were people expecting? It's fair. It's fair. MW Pitt says, I should do 5 shots. Sir, I don't intend to either throw up or die on this. I know 5 shots isn't going to kill me, but it will probably make me throw up. Again, this game started at 2:00. I didn't have a snack at halftime. So, we're getting pretty hungry over here. Let's see. Nitro 230 says that was embarrassing. This team started 7-0 with a chance to go to the college football playoff. Instead, we finished 7-6, losing in a no-name bowl to a MAC team. Time to rebuild. Yeah, and I think they have a lot of building blocks to start with. They have a good foundation, and some of the players they're bringing back, they'll add to it from the transfer portal and see what they can do next year. Royce Beacom says, even in street football, you make sure there is a defensive player on every potential offensive receiver. Then whoever is your defensive coach reiterates that. So why Randy Bates? I don't know. I don't know how you let, particularly number 2 and number 1. Those 2 guys are clearly the best options for Toledo. They were Toledo's top receivers. They were Toledo's top playmakers. They were Toledo's top guys. I don't know how you let them go. I don't know how you let them get open and don't have them accounted for. It doesn't make any sense. Not, and to some extent, good players are going to make plays. Guys like that, they're gonna get the ball, but they don't need to get the ball for 20 catches for 270 yards. There's a level of, okay, if you're playing against Jamar Chase or you're playing against Justin Jefferson, that they're gonna get theirs, but it doesn't need to be 20 catches for 270 yards. There could be something a little bit more reasonable than that. Super Chatter, another Wombat comes in again, says, I've been listening to you and whatnot for a super long time under various YouTube names and listening throughout different apps. I always give you an extra super chat at the end of the season. Don't always agree with you, but I don't know if you said some extra stuff there, another Wombat, but if you did, I appreciate you. I appreciate that you I appreciate that you support the podcast. So a lot of different YouTube names and different apps and all that stuff, but I appreciate the extra super chat at the end of the season, and I appreciate you joining in here. Ron O had a super sticker. I think this was his message. Said Pitt has a lot of good underclassmen players. Duggar has great potential. So does Goff, and the team is really developed. Fix the O-line, stop the stupid penalties, and the future is bright. So I kind of agree with you, Ron. I kind of agree with you. I think there's a lot to build around with this team. I think there's a foundation that is in place that I think you can build from. You need to add pieces. They got one offensive lineman already. They're in on some other guys out of the transfer portal. They're trying to bring in to help rebuild the offensive line. And, you could use another receiver. You could use this. You could use that. But I think there's a good foundation in place with Eli Holstein coming back, with some of the defensive guys they have coming back. I think all those young freshman defensive linemen, like Francis Brew and Sincere Edwards, Jasir Whittington, I didn't see him out there at all today. But I think we will see him next year. We'll see him a lot. I think there's a lot of good young defensive talent on this team as well. So this is a foundation to build around, a group of talented players to form that core. But you need to add from it from the transfer portal, and then I think you have a chance to have some success next year. What that looks like, I don't know. What else we got? Angry Marsupial is a super chatter. Says coaching was gutless. Never go to overtime in a crap bowl. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess if you're just saying he should have had Ben Sauls kick the ball from Pitt territory, okay, I guess. Otherwise, I don't know how gutless they were in regulation. I think you try to run the clock out. To be honest, they probably should have tried to milk the clock more. I got a funny text from a friend saying, here's a hot take. If Frank Cignetti was still Pitt's coach in the fourth quarter there, they win the game. Because Cignetti would have been able to run out the clock instead of Pitt giving the ball back to Toledo as much as they did. So that's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about that, but it's interesting. Let's see. Where was I in the chats? You guys got a lot of things to say here. Steelwell51 says, can we talk about Javon McIntyre? He looked like he didn't want to play for Pitt today. I still don't know what he was doing on Toledo's screen touchdown for 67 yards. Yeah, they got kind of like tangled up on that play, but I felt like McIntyre left some plays on the field this season. I'm not really sure why. I think he's a good player. I think he was good last year. I think he had a lot of moments where he was good this year, but I don't think it was his best. I don't think it was his best season. And I thought it was interesting how much Cruz Brookins played in the base defense today. I noticed him a lot in the second half. Brookins out there with PJ O'Brien. Brookins out there. I think it was largely O'Brien. Occasionally he was out there with McIntyre, actually. But Brookins did play a decent amount of base defensive work in this game. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if that was a reflection on Brookins or more of a reflection on McIntyre or whoever it was. But I thought that was pretty interesting to see. Just kind of scroll through randomly and see what we can find. Mark Shoju asked actually a really good question. On pick six number 2, why put the ball in the air when Toledo needed to score twice? I just kept saying, don't turn it over. Don't turn it over. What did they do? We all know the answer. So Pitt got the ball back on that drive. Let me find out the time on that drive. There was 11:22 on the clock. They were up at that point, 30-20. And they come out and they ran a sweep. They ran a handoff. And then on 3rd and 12, they had Julian Duggar drop back. He scrambled for 18 yards and scored, and picked up a first down. Next play, Juelz Goff runs for 10 yards, gets a first down. They get into Toledo territory. They throw the ball here on first down. First down from the Toledo 49. They're driving. They're in good shape. They're moving the ball. They're doing what they need to do. They're taking time off the clock. and they throw the ball. They get 4 yards on a pass to Tyreek Robinson. Not bad. 2nd and 6 from the Toledo 45. And Duggar drops back to pass again and ends up throwing the ball away. And that sets up 3rd and 6 on the 45. Duggar drops back, throws over the middle. It's picked off for a pick 6. I think probably after they got the first down into Toledo territory, I think that's the point where you go into full-on shutdown mode. You're up by 2 scores. You're up 10 points. I think you're handing it off there. Juelz Goff is your running back on that drive. I think Desmond Reed was still hampered a little bit with that hamstring that had been giving him trouble. And so I think you just try to drain the clock, up 10 points. And instead they throw. And then after you get 4 yards, all right, so they throw on first down and get 4 yards to Tyreek Robinson. Okay, great. That would be like your ideal win on first down with a running play. But then, instead of letting the clock run and handing it off to try and chip away 3 or 4 more yards on 2nd and 6, they drop back to throw again. And that was a really questionable decision, I think, because you hand it off, maybe you get 3 yards. Now you're at 3rd and 3 from the Toledo 42, and you can really do anything. You could hand it off again if you want and just keep that clock rolling. Instead, they throw and turn it over. It's funny, like, you want to be aggressive, you want to play for the win and all these things, but in those situations, you want to drain the clock. Playing for the win in those situations is running the clock, running the ball, and keeping the clock moving. RJC Man 38 says 3rd and 6, and you ask a freshman quarterback to throw with under 8 to play, up 10. Dumb call, dumb game management. Yeah. Well, again, I mean, like I just said, I think it was, at 3rd and 6, when you put yourself in that situation of 3rd and 6, okay, I understand having him drop back. Maybe you get a pass, maybe you get a scramble and get a first down. Either way, I kind of understand at that point. 2nd and 6 and 1st and 10 were the 2 situations where you probably needed to run the ball and keep the chains moving that way, or try to pick up yards and keep the clock moving that way. Let's see. Green says, so what's the plan? We're just stuck with Pat Narduzzi forever. No, that's not the case. You're not firing anybody right now. It doesn't make any sense. Scrolling through here. Peninsula P says, the sad thing is we all knew Pitt would find a way to lose this game. Yeah, but I thought for a minute that they wouldn't. When they were up 10, when they were up 30-20, I thought, all right, they'll be okay. And they throw the pick 6. And I thought, okay, they're not okay. But they still, it's still, there was plenty of opportunity to run the clock out to win that game. I thought they were going to pull it off. I really did. And you know what? When they scored first in overtime, and they got the sack on first down of Toledo's first overtime drive, I thought, that's it. They are going to pull this off. And of course, the very next play, scramble for 15 yards. Let's see. It's Bean Ice says, we lost to Toledo. We suck. Stop acting like we played a good team. I don't think at one point in the last 78 minutes, almost 79 minutes of this live stream, have I said Toledo was good. I don't think they're very good. I think they played a team that was I don't think Pitt played a team that was all that good, but Toledo played a team with its 4th and 5th string quarterbacks playing. It's Be Nice also says losing is not entertaining. Yeah, I guess I was going off on a rant about how it was still an entertaining game. Yeah, a lot of people are pretty mad that I said that, but oh well, that's how it goes. Let's scroll through here. Steel Will 51 says, it depends. Do you find going clinically insane over the process of watching a 5-hour loss to Toledo entertaining? Then yes, I was entertained. Like, I get it, but like, if you step back from the idea that this game was a reflection on the entirety of Pitt football and just say, I watched a college football game today. Granted, you had a rooting interest in that game. It was a pretty entertaining game. If this was Rutgers and Kansas State or whoever, Boston College and Nebraska, you'd be like, oh, that was a wild game. Let's see. Scrolling through here. Guys got a lot of the same things to say. So that's I know how that goes. Let's see. Okay, we got Penn State fans in here too. That's always fun. Wolf HD says, Chris, give me something positive. Give me something to look forward to next year about this team. Oh, I can do that. And maybe we'll end on this, actually. I love it, Wolf. I'll tell you some positive things. All right. First of all, and this is in no particular order, you've got Desmond Reed coming back. And Desmond Reed is, I think, and I've said this a number of times, one of the most electrifying players we've seen in a Pitt uniform in a long time. Like maybe going back to LaShawn McCoy. You know, I'm not really sure who, since LaShawn McCoy, that was 16 years ago, was McCoy's final year. I'm not sure who over the last 16 years, the last 15 years, I guess, is more electric, more exciting, has the kind of game-breaking ability that that Desmond Reed has. So that's one. I mean, you can be optimistic about that. And he showed it today. That not only is he electric and fast and all of that, but he's a heck of a player. And he'll battle out there. And he will take a beating and he'll keep going. So that's one. Eli Holstein. I think people have forgotten some of the really good things Eli Holstein did this year. Like when you talk, and everybody's going to talk all offseason about the 6-game losing streak, about how they started 7-0 and then they lost 6 games in a row. He was a big part of how they started 7-0 and a big part of why they started 7-0. He had a whole lot to do, particularly in the first 5 games, with those wins. Coming back from down 3 touchdowns at Cincinnati, coming back from down 10 points in the final 5 minutes against West Virginia, and winning at North Carolina, which Pitt had never, ever done. All 3 of those things happened because of Eli Holstein. Not only because of him, but because of him. He had a whole lot to do with those games, and that's big. If he's playing, I think they have a good chance of beating Virginia. I think they have a good chance of beating Boston College. If he's playing, they go at least 9-3, if not better. Maybe Clemson. Okay, so that's something to be encouraged about. Also, Kyle Lewis, first-team All-American. You've got an All-American linebacker. That's good, right? Rasheed Biles, also very good. Francis Brew and Jasir Whittington and Sincere Edwards are going to be really good. Sean Fitzsimmons has a lot of potential. Cruz Brookins got his pick today. Finally made that big play at the safety position. So, I think there's a lot to like. I think this kicker they're bringing in, this transfer kicker who's coming in, James London from Murray State, has the kind of big leg potential that Ben Sauls had. He didn't hit as high of a percentage as Ben Sauls, but he made like 7 50-yard field goals this year. So you got something to be encouraged about there as well. And they might be able to rebuild the offensive line and upgrade the offensive line through the transfer portal. So I think there's plenty to look forward to. How about that? We got a super chatter. Maybe we'll end on this. Jason Weinberg, big time super chatter. We appreciate you, sir. Thanks for giving me something to look forward to after the Pitt games this year. Looking forward to a successful basketball and football season in 2025. Cheers. Jason, for the super chat, for watching the podcast, for contributing and being a part of it. Thank you. Cheers to you, sir. And for all you guys who tuned in through all these post-game shows throughout the season, really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I always enjoy sitting down with these things. I like doing them after the road games and the home games, but the road games are a little more fun because literally we just finish the game and jump right on here. No delay in there. But you guys have showed up all the time. Even the primetime games, you're in here at like 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning watching these post-game shows. It's a lot of fun, and I appreciate it. I wouldn't do this if nobody was watching. So if you ever want me to stop, then just stop watching, obviously, because nobody's watching, then we're not going to do it. But I appreciate you guys keep showing up. Win or lose, we always have something to talk about. We don't have to agree about everything, and we often don't. But I appreciate that you guys keep showing up and watching. Don't forget, we'll have lots of coverage. Jim is in Detroit for this game, and so we'll have a lot of coverage right here at Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, and then we'll have video content right here, YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Jim's posting post-game press conferences and things like that. We'll have I don't know if we'll have a morning pit tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a live show tomorrow or something like this. Maybe this post-game show will just count as the morning pit. It's kind of what I'm leaning toward. So, yeah, but I think that about does it. I think that should cover us for this show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Thanks for tuning in throughout the whole season. We'll have some basketball post-game shows. I'll keep you posted on that. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of our Pitt video content, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You can turn on notifications, get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Pitt loses 48-46? Because, of course. Pitt loses 48-46. The season's over. They're 7-6. Now we'll move on. It's basketball time. It's transfer time. It's 2025 football season time. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy your Friday. We'll catch up with you at some point here sometime soon. Right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.